This daily dose is brought to you by Pirate.Black. ARRR!
Today, we're going to talk about why financial privacy is important. I would really argue that, privacy is one of the core elements of being money and is an expectation that we have. None of us would like to have, our bank account being exposed to the world. And in the ways, Ethereum addresses, Bitcoin addresses, and, cryptocurrency addresses in general are kind of like a Twitter for your bank account. Just imagine, someone taking a look at your statements and seeing everything that you do, everything that you spend on. And some people often argue, say like, I've really nothing to hide. What's wrong with, people taking a look at me buying a coffee, buying, some snacks here and there? What is the risk there? And we have to realize, just imagine if we're paying for a cup of coffee, and the merchant or, the Starbucks or the barista immediately knows my net worth, how much I'm earning and stuff like that. And that actually opens the door to, well, first of all, it's a security risk, right? If I'm rich, people can possibly kidnap me, to beat me and try to get my money. But also from just from a customer standpoint, if someone, wow, this guy is like a millionaire, maybe I should treat him better. Maybe I should give him more points. And that's actually quite scary. Like, for example, even with an airline, right? If an airline suddenly knows, this guy has just booked, all these non-cancelable holiday accommodation. Now I'm going to charge him really high because he has no choice. He has to do that. There is a real risk for this sort of lack of privacy. It also opens the door to stalking. There's this actually article online on how to stalk your ex with Venmo. It sounds funny, but if you look at it, it's actually quite scary. And we have to realize that, if we see cryptocurrency as being more than just this online casino, more than just being about memes, dog coins and stuff like that, but actually being used as payment, as currency. I mean, this is what crypto is about. Cryptocurrency. It's not crypto, fund this and that. It can be that, but we have to realize what is cryptocurrency actually made for. And it was meant to be this alternative payment and financial system that is separate from the traditional banking and financial systems. We also have to understand that, the concept of financial privacy is actually quite new. Because, maybe 20, 30 years ago, cash was a lot more prevalent, right? And with cash, when you give cash, no one knows anything. It's totally anonymous, right? But the problem with cash is it's not easy to, store large amounts. It's not easy to pay with large amounts or to carry around, right? And the idea is that, cryptocurrencies can be this sort of form of digital cash, right? Where you have that same amounts, same protections of anonymity and privacy while still functioning as a medium of exchange. Another way to think of it is that, there's already all this kind of hoo-ha about, online tracking, about browsers putting all these websites having cookies that track our behavior across different websites. And people are concerned about that they're using all these ad blockers or cookie blockers or privacy-focused browsers. And really, there's nothing wrong with that. But financial privacy, on the other hand, is not just tracking your online behavior. It actually tracks your physical kind of privacy, right? Because I can tell where you go, where you spend your money, and that in a way is something that you cannot opt out, right? With browsers, you can say, I don't want to look at this ad, or I don't want to block this tracker. But if you're going to pay for things in the real world, it's almost like a cookie for the real world. And this is why, we really have to protect privacy. Now, it's often challenging, to be a privacy coin. We've seen a lot of regulatory action, privacy coins are being painted as this thing that facilitates money laundering and terrorist financing. And, to be honest, that is very far from the truth, right? If you want to take a look statistics, this types of illicit activity actually happens with regular fiat money, right? And I would see currency as a tool, right? It can be used for good, it can be used for bad, but it doesn't mean that we should erode everyone's privacy because there are really, really real costs. You're saying, I'm protecting, a few, this against terrorists, against money laundering, but at the same time, you're eroding everyone's privacy and having these, let's say, in the event of a central bank digital currency, the government has almost like full insight into what you're doing. Is that something that we are willing to give up, right? There should be a separation of powers between the state and the citizen. And giving powers to an authoritarian state is actually really scary. Because you have to remember with digital cash or with, let's say, more centralized forms of currencies like CBDCs, your access to the financial system can be cut off, right? And that can be done just with a click of a button. Unlike with, let's say, cash, where they actually have to come and try and find the cash and raid you and stuff. It's a very, very different order. And we are already seeing things like this being implemented in certain countries where bad behavior is being punished by exclusions of certain huge portions of the financial system, or like you're not allowed to stay in hotels, you're not allowed to travel by air. We are already seeing this, and we have to be really, really, mindful that, cryptocurrencies are meant to be this alternative against this kind of like dystopian future where, we are controlled not just by our actions, by online tracking, but also our access to the financial system. And using a privacy coin shouldn't be about, I'm anti-government, I'm I'm doing some illicit activity. That's not necessarily the case, Private currency gives you the ability to selectively disclose, let's say I want to give, my accountant to be able to do my taxes. Or, if I run the charity, we have that option to give you the ability to say, okay, look, here is my statements, but that is upon request, right? It's not like someone can just look it up by default, right? It's not, your financial transaction should not be like a Facebook or Twitter feed. Right. With the rise of AI and machine learning, the state of blockchain analysis where it used to be, a bunch of researchers using some computers to kind of like examine a particular group of transactions. Now it can be actually applied on a very wide scale basis on basically everyone. And this is just going to get worse and worse as the technology keeps up. So what that means, just imagine if I have a blockchain, like a tool that can just say, look up all transactions on Ruben, and no matter what I've done, all of that just comes up and it gets flagged, right? And that isn't really what we want to do. Our financial transactions should not be like Googleable, right? And this is why, we put in so much effort to build financial privacy technology that is going to be resistant not just to the threats of today, but for the threats of tomorrow. And this is why we are putting so much effort into that. I do think that, with the rise of authoritarian governments, central bank digital currencies, and large corporations that basically use our data willy-nilly, I think there is going to be a real shift towards, privacy preserving cryptocurrencies.
Follow the treasure to pirate.black, because financial privacy today is freedom tomorrow. ARRR!